Okay, all right. All right, but so in the global changes first, we're not looking at competitive. We're looking at game-wide right now. Boots, do you want to tell us what the devs say about it? They're opening a little thing here.
The Elementalist?
Yeah, for Ellie. We'll do the lights, so Ellie first, I guess.
All right, so Elementalist. Ooh. Summoned elementals offer a unique gameplay option, that's right, AI, for elementalists that want to fight alongside an ally. But their short duration means that they can die frequently during fights. We have increased their summon duration, but we don't want to make them last indefinitely like Necromancer minions, as we feel part of the identity of glyphs is to be able to switch attunements and make different options available. Very true. Additionally, we felt that the lesser elemental summoning glyph didn't feel distinct enough from the elite glyph, since the elite elementals had the same skills as the lesser elementals. So to better distinguish the two glyphs, the command skill of the lesser elementals is no longer present, which allows for multiple lesser elementals to be summoned at once.
Wow. Dude, yeah. I've got so many thoughts about this. What do you think about the whole elemental thing here?
I think, sure, fine. That's great. Nobody uses elementals, so if they could do something to make people use them, that'd be great.
It's kind of like Ellie gets a new elite if they do this well, right?
Yeah.
And
if they do it well. It doesn't sound like they're changing much for the... I mean, it'll be a longer duration, I guess, but it doesn't sound like they're changing much for the elite. They're more changing something for the lesser.
Yeah, I like the idea of being able to zoo around with things, isn't Ellie? As far as a PvE thing is concerned, I quite like minion-y things. And I like the designs of the elementals. You know what I always thought that they might do, Boots? Instead of letting you zoo with them, you know they say the attunement swapping the glyph should change. I always wondered if maybe when you attunement swap, the elemental that you have out swaps its type. Like dynamically as it goes. How cool would that be?
That'd be pretty cool.
And then you get access to all the different commands. That would be a big buff for them. But I guess it would be a pain in the ass to code in terms of when they're supposed to die and does it reset their health. And
it does make it kind of interesting to play another aura share build with this though, right? Now that you actually have friends to go along with.
Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Isn't there a glyph that casts an aura when you cast it? Like, isn't there a trait that when you do a glyph it gives you an aura?
Not on glyph. I don't think there's a trait that gives you aura on glyph.
Or is it just
there's
sure?
boons. There's an air trait which is
boons.
Reduce glyph cooldown and get boons. Which really doesn't synergize with it. I like the idea of spamming out a lot of these elementals and using like a Tempest Warhorn and giving them all 25 might so that they hit hard. That's kind of a cool idea, kind of like the Blood is Power thing over on Necro. Anyway, so
there's a lot of other changes besides that, so let's go through it.
Yeah. So it's a nice new tool. First, they've got Overload Fire. They've increased the might per pulse to 2 stacks, so you get double stacks from that.
That's a lot of might.
That is a lot of might.
That's like 20 might.
Yeah, and again, that would help your little elemental friends as well. Feel the Burn now gets another stack of burn.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's 2 stacks of burning. And did they increase the duration as well?
They did not.
Oh, no. They just doubled. They gave you more burns. So that's kind of nice. Now, here's the first controversial change for Ellie. Obsidian Flesh. This skill now locks the player's skill bar while they are invulnerable.
Interesting. So it both locks the player's skill bar and doesn't contribute to...
capture points.
Capture points? Interesting.
Well, that's like Elixir S, right? So engineers have always... The difference is... Mist Form as well. On the same class is an invulnerability skill that does that. The difference is those are utilities while this is a weapon skill. And obviously the cooldowns and stuff. I have seen some people complaining about it because obviously going into Earth on a Condi Weaver in PvE does have... You can have focus there, you can see Obsidian Flesh, and now you just don't get your free invulnerability every now and then.
Can you still attunement swap?
Yeah, I would assume so. I think you can attunement swap still in Vapor Form, in Mist Form, for example. Because you can like attunement swap and then dodge roll to heal and stuff even while you're invulnerable or trigger Evasive Arcana. So I assume that that's still there, but you just can't press any skills. I mean, it makes it uniform. I'm not some Ellie defender in this place.
It's not entirely uniform because there are still invulnerability skills out there that don't lock you.
Well, like what?
Like Endure Pain and...
well, yeah, but Distortion is not really the same thing, is it?
It is not the same thing. It's true.
I don't know. And like Endure Pain, you can still be hit by Condis and stuff. I don't know. I just feel like it's getting the Elixir S Vapor Form kind of treatment, and it sort of makes sense to me. That's all really. I appreciate some people won't like it for PvE, but they have it. Stone Resonance. So, in fact, the entire block we're going to read here, I won't do them all separately. They are all Weaver skills that now grant stability the second that you use them if you're in PvP or World versus World. Sorry,
Yes.
Anywhere. This is global changes, obviously. It just gives you a little bit. It gives you a little bit less in PvP and World versus World. Why is that?
Because of a trait that is going to be coming, or that later on, I guess. Is it in here or in the PvP section?
It'll be global for sure.
It's here. So it bolstered elements later on. Bolstered elements. This trait now grants barrier instead of stability when using a stand skill.
Yeah, so right now on Weaver, you get stabbed when you hit a stance. They have ammo. You can sustain pretty decent stability. And they've reworked that now. So it's just tons of barrier from all of the thing. And this kind of evens it out a little bit more, I think. But what's important is you're getting stabbed from different places now, right?
Yeah, not just from your stances.
Yeah, you get stabbed from basically mixed abilities, right? Lava Skin is a mix. Lahar is a mix. Grinding stones. Glacial Drift and Molten Blast. And you'll notice as well that a lot of them are kind of lame mixes. Lava Skin notwithstanding, but Lahar, people don't, and Grinding Stones I guess was good. But people don't really use Glacial Drift. People don't really use Lahar. Glacial Drift I'm actually really kind of excited about. This was like one of the weakest new skills that was added to a Fresh Air Weaver. And now I might actually use it.
Just because of the stability? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's only 3 seconds. So maybe not. But, yeah, so lots of stab, just reshuffling on the class. I don't actually know what their impulse is here, Boosts.
I think it's maybe something to do with, like, if you're a Weaver and you want stability, you're stuck with your stances, but now you don't have to be stuck with the stances, perhaps?
I guess. Or they felt like it was... If you had a lot of stances on, if you were using, like, Price Stance... and you were using Stone Resonance, and you were using the Elite, and you were using Twist of Fate, which you realistically could be, all of a sudden you've got way too much stab, maybe? Even though you're not.
Maybe. I liked it.
I
liked it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, people like being powerful, no doubt.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Whatever.
Then they have the Summoned Elementals, which we already kind of read.
Yeah, except so the actual numbers that they have here are the summon time is now, instead of 60 seconds, is 120 seconds, so twice as long. And on top of that, so that means this lesser glyph of elementals originally, and I guess still is because it doesn't look like it's changed, has a 40-second cooldown, which means you'll be able to sustain probably 3 elementals at all times.
Yeah, if you spam it when it comes up. And the Elite one has been dropped to 40 seconds as well.
That's right, but this one you can't really spam it because it has the activation skill. So you only have 1 Elite, but it'll be up for longer if it doesn't die.
I wonder if with the lesser glyph, they're going to pay attention. They're going to put a hard cap. Like a lot of the minion skills, they have to be careful about. Like if I have loads of Alacrity, or I go to the Golem or Adrenal Mushrooms, and I keep eating Adrenal Mushrooms and spamming lesser glyphs, am I going to spawn an army, or are they going to put a hard cap?
It sounds like you're going to spawn an army until there's a fast patch.
Yes, probably. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, look, they got a whole month in advance to see if people nerf that stuff out. There is another little thing, by the way. Elementals play an effect when commanded to indicate that they're using a special skill. That's kind of uniform across the game now. I don't know what the effect will look like, obviously, but...
I also hope that they do a pass to make the special skill that they use activate faster and more reliably.
I would like that too, for sure. But what's going to be kind of good for this, especially from we're talking global right now, but from a competitive perspective, it'll be nice to actually see some telegraph like, oh, I should dodge the minion that has not been my priority focus because now I see this cool new animation, right? So they did some slight changes to their skills themselves.
A little stack of burning on flame burst for the lesser and fire elementals, not the activated skill. Then the activated skill, flame barrage, it's a little bit bigger. I mean, it goes a little bit further, and it's a line of an AoE attack that does more damage. Windborne speed, bigger radius, shocking bolt, longer stun duration but increased cooldown, and the earth elemental has a stomp that immobilizes now.
Yeah, I do like the stun duration increase. The stun was always pretty cool from the air elemental. And one of my favorites to actually trigger. And yeah, they had a flame attack that was doing cripple, not burn. And it just didn't make sense. So that's been tweaked now. So yeah, then there is one of the first changes. If you watched our previous video, you will have heard us talking about this. There's a stone flesh minor trait in earth. That meant whenever you swap to earth, while specialized to earth, gave you more toughness and messed with tank aggro potentially in certain situations. That's now just 7% damage reduction so that you don't mess with anyone's aggro or anything like that.
Good stuff.
Bolstered elements, which they changed and we already talked about. So elemental contingency. This is the weird arcane trait that's actually pretty good. That means if you get struck, you get a free boon instantly based on the attunement you're in, and was one of Ellie's only sources of retaliation. So that is now gone. Bye-bye. You don't get that trait anymore. Instead, it's got a trait called Elemental Lockdown, and that's what they described last of all. What's this new thing?
Elemental Lockdown, disabling a foe grants you a boon based on your attunement. So 5 stacks of might for 5 seconds in fire, 5 seconds of fury in air, 4 seconds of protection in earth, and 10 seconds of regeneration in water. This, this is not bad. And I kind of get it too, because since they're reducing all disabling skills' damage by so much, you're going to want to have a reason to disable things nowadays.
Yeah.
And maybe this will be one of the reasons.
And they're trying to hit just passive boon uptime, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is now you actively CC someone, you get a reward of some kind. But I have noticed that they did swap what was once upon a time retail into might. And they've cleaned up that part of the Ellie's identity. Because I always thought it was a bit weird you got a bit of retail on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the global Ellie changes. But that's not all, guys. We also have the PvP and World versus World.
Question
changes.
about Elemental Lockdown. Are they going to change it also so that it's disabling a foe or hitting something with breakbar?
I would assume... Oh, I don't know. It probably should be breakbar as well.
Yeah.
Right?
I think they should do that to a lot of things.
One of these PvE changes. Guys, when we get to the medium armor episode, what are the thief changes? They could be monsters for breakbars going forward. Have you seen what they did to Headshot?
I did, yeah.
Right, okay, so PvP. All the overloads have changed. This is World versus World also. The might is halved in duration. So remember, globally you're now getting double might stacks, but it all lasts less long, right? So this is kind of on board. If you saw our global video with that idea that you can, if you want might, you choose to get it, you do get it, but not for long. You need to spend it properly. Overload water. They reduced the pulsing heals and the target cap from 10 to 5. So for World vs. World, I guess that last bit's a little bit more relevant. Overload air, the power per strike's going down a little bit. And overload earth, the target cap is also going down from 10 to 5 as well.
Okay.
To be honest, I never really played into the 10 to 5.
Well, in PvP it won't matter, but World vs. World, I guess it mattered.
Yeah. 10-man prot spam in raids and stuff with Overload Earth. I hadn't really thought about that much. But there it is. So they go into weapon skills. Do you want to do the honors?
Well, I don't think we have to read everything, right? It's
right, I agree.
It's so basically every single weapon skill has been done a once over. If it only does damage, essentially, it gets the damage goes down a little bit, trying to get below that 2.0 mark at the highest. And if it does other stuff, the damage goes down slightly less than it would have. Slightly more, I guess. And yeah, so basically every single power skill is getting nerfed by a bit. 10 to 30%. But if it has a CC in it, it's getting nerfed to the ground.
So let's talk about static field here. This is a really good example for everyone on air. So static field, reduced power. Currently, if you walk into a static field, you take damage and get stunned, right?
Right.
Well, it currently has a power coefficient of 0.5, which I think means like half your power, right? It now does 0.01.
So it is 50 times less damaging.
It does basically nothing. Anything that does a hard CC in the game for the competitive formats, like everywhere, they don't hurt you anymore. They are to set up the next thing or interrupt a skill.
Yeah.
And
so I would like to make a point about this, though.
Go ahead.
Just a general point. I think this is good. I like it. There are certain skills that I think are a lot harder to hit than other skills. And so, like, the damage portion maybe shouldn't be completely gone. Or
don't you think the impact of the CC should be
or the impact of the CC should be greater, but they haven't been changed yet, necessarily. Right. On top of that, because basically 1 in 5 skills have CC on them in the game today. So since 1 in 5 skills, all the damage from them is getting completely removed, I don't know if they realize how much damage is already being removed from the game power-wise just from that change. And I don't know if they need to be nerfing all the other skills as much as they're nerfing them.
Interesting. I think maybe you're onto something a little bit there. I think for Warrior, that's a bigger consideration than most people. Dude, do you know what this means? It means I can't actually remember reading this specific change, but it must mean Bull's Rush doesn't one-shot people anymore. How amazing.
So the craziest part of this patch is like certain categories of skills and like certain skills themselves that just don't make much sense anymore.
Maybe.
Like Bull's Rush is okay because you still get the evade and the gap closer and the knockdown, but things like kick are kind of weird right now. And
well, there I would say you can scale the ammunition. I mean, look, we'll talk about that in the heavy episode.
Yes,
Let's talk about that more there. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think Headbutt's crazy as well in terms of this conversation. So yeah, guys, that's the hard CC thing. We won't read it every time. I will note, though, that there are some interesting implications for the light armors here. Ellie still kind of gets to do damage on CC with one of the Air Grandmasters, which hasn't been changed.
That's true. That's true.
And Mesmer as well. And it's obviously a very Mesmer-y thing. If you take Power Block and you get those interrupts, then you can also kind of still accomplish that. It just won't stack on top of the initial hit.
Yeah.
Also, there are a couple of other little things. Ice Spike here is they're doing a thing with the vulnerability like we've been talking about with Might. So the vulnerability previously was 5 stacks for 10 seconds. Now it's 12 stacks, over double the intensity for just 6 seconds. Mm-hmm. So again, you're setting up a spike, right? It's like
this. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of setting up spikes now.
Yes. Oh my god, which is good. It's like barbsing right before your R spike. It's going to be good.
And also important to note that at least in water, you're going to see a lot of heal skills in this game all being nerfed a little bit.
You are. I think for competitive, by the way, Meteor Shower is quite interesting to me. Maybe because it's bundled with World vs. World here, but really, the Staff Ellie Meteor Shower dream is like ludicrously stupid and dumb in the game at the moment. Like Staff Ellie, Glass Staff Ellie is just so weak compared to what is possible and how fast people move and stuff. So I'm surprised that Meteor Shower got shaved as much as it did.
Yeah.
They went from 1.6 to 1.1. I would have thought they'd left it a bit higher.
Well, yeah, Meteor Shower, why not? Well, it has a lot of hits, so that might play into their idea of it. But it's like not that easy to hit with all of them. That's another thing. So like standardizing everything to 2.0 max essentially is a great idea in theory, and I think it'll work overall. But they're gonna have to do some tweaking in this next month and probably after the patch comes out too, because there's a lot of skills that like Eviscerate, you get to your 2.0, fine. But it's a lot easier to hit than, say, a Churning Earth. Or it's a lot easier to hit than some of the high hammer blows, because they're so slow and slow to connect. So them being the same damage and not doing any additional things don't make that much sense.
Like, Dragon's Tooth is a more, it's a light armor change right here. It's at the cap. Dragon's Tooth, Scepter 2, 2.0 damage. But it's kind of easy. Oh, well, it's easy to dodge a Dragon's Tooth, though, as well.
It is.
Look, the thing is, guys, this is not going to come in perfectly balanced. We're just entering a new phase, and then they'll shave wherever. These little things Boots are talking about are going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you got the vulnerability change on Shatterstone, Scepter 2 as well, a little bit there, where it does a bit more. I'm really looking forward to, like, vulnerabilitying people that are down. Or would be if,
I'm so glad that Shatterstone isn't too nerfed, because it's such an important skill.
They spent so long buffing it, and now finally it's coming down with everything else. Oh, there is some important stuff. Let's talk about Riptide. Water 2 on Weaver. Obviously, Weaver's a very strong duelist. Reduce the power on the strike, whatever. We don't really care about that. Reduce the healing by a lot, from 0.1 to 0.05.
Yeah.
But don't forget, it's a water field, and the point is to dodge in it afterwards or Earth 2 in it.
Fine.
But increase the cooldown from 12 to 18 seconds.
And they did the same thing with Earth 2, increase the cooldown from 12 to 18 seconds.
So both these long evade chain skills on this specific kit, both being hit hard. And you're going to see as well when we get to utilities in a second, that Twist of Fate, another long evadey kind of thing, has been hit hard. This form of duelist is really down a peg. But so is everything else, so it's hard to say, everything, but yeah. I think there's probably, if we really put a ton of time into this, you could figure out the specific skills that weren't changed much and where that goes. Pile Driver, the burst on staff air-earth mix is all the way down to 1.6, not left at 2.0, because obviously it does a daze at the same time, and I think it pierces. Pyro Vortex's cooldown's gone up. That's a big burst skill.
Mudslide down, because it's a knockdown, it's down to 0.1, so it's not going to be that much fun to use anymore. Although it didn't do too much damage.
Mudslide's proc. Mudslite's about proccing the air trait more than anything else, right? Check out the right hand side of the bar. This is what's really interesting to me. All the cooldowns going up, right? The heal skills increased cooldown from 20 to 25, or reducing the heal for the weaker ones, right?
Yeah.
Really, really strong. Wild versus Wilds using the PvP cooldown. Aquatic Stance has actually also been nerfed a bit, even though people rarely ever use it.
Yeah. Well,
and then as for all the other utilities, do you want to talk about any in specific? Lightning Flash has had its cooldown reduced, so it's actually been buffed.
Except the damage on it has gone down to 0.3.
Oh, come on, dudes. You're trash if you're trying to kill people with Lightning Flash, really.
Right, but it's a large difference in damage.
I think though, I really like this because Lightning Flash is a shorter range than like Blink over on the Mesmer. It doesn't truly stun break. There's all these things. So with all these cooldowns going up, the fact Lightning Flash goes down, I quite like. But I also dislike that it's more mobility power creep. I mean, that is one of the biggest problems with the game.
Is it?
And yes, it is. It definitely is. Disengage potential and being able to wade instantly out of AoEs and stuff like that, really, really messing up with class roles and identity and rotation.
I suppose if they're not nerfing mobility and they're making it much more difficult for people to kill each other because of all the nerfs and damage, then
escape potential goes up.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting conundrum.
I mean, I do like the idea of the game. In the world we're describing here, you do create a competitive environment where people are more likely to regroup and assist each other on the roads and like combine to get collapsed together, which currently we see very few people are genuinely adept at. Yeah. But that could become a bigger part of the game going forwards. But yeah, I think you will see more stalling, and people who are good at kiting and getting around, they're not going to be hindered this patch, and there's going to be less damage threatening them in general. Another utility I really want to talk about is Twist of Fate. I mentioned this earlier. It was a 40-second recharge before, 75 seconds now.
Yeah, that's long.
Very good though.
Also, Cleansing Fire, for example, it's not used very often, but it's just an example of that they are nerfing the condition cleansing in a bunch of things as well.
Oh, right.
So this going down from 5 to 3. They did the same. Well, we talked about it in the heavy armor one, but they did the same thing to the Shout. So yeah, I mean, even though they reduced the duration of Condis, they're reducing Condi cleansing as well. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Eye of the Storm had a bit less super speed. People weren't really running that much. And then we got Tornado. Yeah. I don't know where. I don't know. I try not to be biased about Ellie in any way, right? But when I read this, Tornado is really pathetic.
Already.
Tornado is also obviously like very, very CC loaded.
Yep.
And so they've obviously nerfed all of those skills.
Yep.
The cooldown is quicker now. You can spam it every minute instead of 90 seconds. But all the coefficients are like nuked, so you don't do damage with this thing.
Well, no, there's still the third thing,
Requiem or whatever.
Yeah, there's still there's one that just does
and the
electricity.
Air one.
Yeah,
the air one. Yeah, it's very, very weak. I don't think that Requiem and the electric tornado form match like Rampage autos.
Yeah, they've reduced the cooldown down to 60 seconds though.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see tornadoes. But of course, by the way, this is only competitive. You can still do damage with it in PvE.
Yeah.
And then the actual flat damage from the Tailored Victory as well on the Weave Self, that has also gone down.
Yeah.
Oh my god, we got the traits as well. Jesus, I forgot about this. All right, so what are some highlights from the traits?
Let's see.
Reducing. Let's talk about water for a second. All the heals are going down.
All the heals
like
are
in
going
a big
down
way.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Cooldown increased on Soothing Ice. The reason for this, guys, is as they bring the damage down, you have to bring the healing down as well. Otherwise, you've got a really stally, really gross tank
Soothing
situation.
Mist goes down by half.
Yeah, and anything that's not tied to something actively being done gets nerfed harder.
Yeah,
right?
Soothing Ice, for example, the one that I thinks gives Frost Aura and Regeneration. The cooldown gets put to 60 seconds from 30. I'm wondering why they reduced the bonus damage from a couple of these traits on water.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Maybe it's just because it's passive damage bonuses that they weren't too interested in.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
It's still there as a passive damage bonus.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's less.
Yes, it is less.
So for air, they do have some pretty significant stuff. Electric Discharge. This is just the instant damage when you swap to air attunement, and you could spam this twice if you're a Weaver, for example, complement it with a Scepter. They've reduced the damage by a lot, 0.25 to 0.05.
Yeah, so 1/5 is strong, but
the vulnerability it used to apply was 1 stack for like a reasonable duration. Now it's 8 stacks of vuln.
For still a reasonable duration.
So I'm not sure I hate this or anything, right?
No, it's like
the
setting
idea
up
is
your
like,
attack again.
Yes, exactly. You swap into air, it's set up your next air burst or whatever, your plasma beam and so on.
Yeah.
The only place where it kind of falls apart is right now there is a variant of the burst that you can very comfortably do with the glyph. That means they have 25 vuln anyway for your burst.
Right.
And in that place, you're really not trading anything, and you've kind of nerfed the glyph in a way. But hey. Inscription was the glyph-oriented boon trait. They've increased the might stacks and reduced the regeneration duration. And then lightning rods, all they really did was drop the weakness a bit, but it has all the damage still. So
But that damage doesn't crit, right, still?
I don't think so. It's pretty good though. There's a dagger variant that's not too shabby, honestly.
Okay.
Lightning Rod Weaver isn't too bad. What I've also noticed is the weakness they left on there. Weakness is really strong. Like, really strong. Yeah. And I don't actually see them culling weakness back that much this patch either. So anything that can maintain high weakness post-patch, I think pre-patch will probably still be in a similar place post-patch.
Also, Apothecary runes make me very interested after this patch.
Why is that?
Isn't Apothecary runes the one that, or is it Aristocracy? The ones that when you apply weakness, you get 5 stacks of might?
Yeah, Aristocracy is that, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Aristocracy, you're going to be good?
Yeah, you can use that with Warrior's Body Blow to just, like, stack a ton. It's
especially, yeah, and with Lightning Rod, Ellie.
So, we've got some Earth changes. Nothing. We've already kind of talked about it, but here's the first 300 seconds. Earth's Embrace. This is you. When you get hit, you automatically get stab and stun break. Well, you can still do that. That's fine. But it's a 300-second cooldown now.
Yeah.
If you guys follow the trajectory of the balance the past 2 years, remember a lot of these were on really low cooldowns, and then they uniformly nerfed them all to 90. And now they're really stepping up to the table and saying, not even 90 is good enough. 300, baby.
300
and I'm really
is very long. 300 is very long.
Less random bleed stacks coming out on Strength of Stone. Less random endurance spam from Earth's Blessing. They didn't really do a section for that, but there is a bit less endurance coming out. I think they want to go back to a place like the game was nearer to launch where you can kind of count dodges a bit more reliably. I'm surprised, Boots, that they didn't remove the Sigil of Energy from PvP. If they really wanted to go for that, but they've left it there. Obviously, it's pretty nerfed in PvP.
Yeah, 25 instead of 50.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have Arcane. Anything interesting in Arcane? Oh, Geyser Pulse, Revive Pulse. Yeah. Down from 7% to 1%. That is not very high.
So they don't like the resurrection spam stuff where you score a kill and then you feel cheated out of it?
Yeah, because I assume that now, since it's going to be so much harder to get kills, maybe, that you want it to actually go through it.
Yeah, for sure. And so obviously you can expect that for Well of Blood and stuff in a moment when we get to Necro. And just reduce concentration and boon up time and stuff in general.
Final shielding also goes to 300 seconds.
Yeah, it does indeed. Over on Tempest, kind of same standard stuff. The 300 seconds is on Gale Song. The concentration's gone down. The might amount has gone up, but duration's decreased. And then over on Weaver, you've got a few more changes. Specifically, the barrier that you were getting from Invigorating Strikes has been nerfed a bit. The ICD... Oh, by the way, I thought that was a good fire change.
They don't. So they don't mention the trait that is no longer stability on Weaver and is now barrier. They don't mention it here.
That's because that's in global, right?
But they don't actually say how much barrier.
Did they not in global say how much barrier?
I don't think so. I guess it doesn't really matter that much.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're looking at some big nerfs here. Bonus condition duration from 20% all the way down to 7 for weakest prowess. But that's appropriate because that's not even a GM. It was always a bit dumb.
I guess so.
So there you go. That's Ellie. That's the first of 3 lights, and kind of really sets the stage for a lot of what we'll be looking at later. Let's have a look over at the global changes for Necro now, shall we, Boots?
Sounds like a good idea.
All right, so the devs say this, that the Necromancer has always been designed to be a resilient profession that was light on stability. Since this update specifically is removing some stability from their traits, we made sure to buff their stun break skills appropriately in response. Additionally, we fixed a few issues with minion responsiveness, and we've buffed a few of the weaker minion command skills.
Okay.
So
before we go into this, really quickly, I'd like to talk about Necromancer after the patch. Don't you think that Shroud, in general, in a world where there's so much less damage being done and healing, is going to be very, very powerful?
If Shroud acquisition remains at the level it is of today.
And so far it appears as though there are no real changes to it.
They didn't nerf. If you remember, just last balance patch, you guys can go back and look at the video. They buffed Signet of Undeath to double strength, right?
Yeah.
And that was enough to actually make people use it.
Yeah. In fact, there's something in here that buffs it too, as well.
Yeah.
So
Necro is kind of like the king of attrition, right? And attrition is always going to win out the slower things get.
I think there is going to be a point here where they're going to have to do some nerfs to Shroud if they're going to go ahead with this.
Interesting. That's a cool point. I hadn't thought of that at all, Boots, but you might be onto something.
Yeah. Anyway.
Right, so the first block here is Necro stun breaks on their utilities. Will of Power, Plague Signet, Spectral Armor, and Spectral Walk, all of them got cooldown bumps to compensate for the fact that there will be stability loss coming up. By the way, there is this idea, there's a thrust coming through all of this where there's like way less stab going to be in the game. But when you look at Guardian, you'll see Guardian is like the king of stab. And I just really like this idea that we'll go to a place where the Guardian is giving you the stab. And it's like those team synergies coming in and more reinforced.
Okay.
Rather than everyone's like providing their own little bit all the time. So, yes, these are all very, very good, all right? And you're going to see why, because there's a pretty big stab resource in Necro that's getting completely reworked here. They did the unblockable thing for Nothing Can Save You. Yep. So you get 5 attacks, unblockable, but more enemies you hit, you get more. If you get the max value out of it, it's 10 attacks, I think it is. Yeah. The minion stuff gets a little bit of help. There's that new telegraph, like from the Ellie section, and Haunt gets a higher radius. Bone Fiends apparently respond instantly now.
That'll be good.
Used to. Fleshworm has a higher radius as well, which is nice. Okay, now here's a good one. Instant activation, Doom. So, Shroud, you just fear someone, right? For Core Necro, the ability now has a cast time. And it inflicts your fear on your foe at, so they say 640 ms. This is like ping, right? This is like latency.
No, it's 640,000th of a second.
Right, yeah. So it's kind of like giving you the animation duration kind
exactly.
of thing. Right. So so that's how long it will take to cast. They mention that a lot. They give us really detailed like nitty-gritties like that in these posts.
Yeah, so but that's interesting though, because I often use Doom or whatever to if someone CCs me, because it's instacast.
Yeah,
so you
to
can
get them away
from you while you're CC'd, but now I guess you can't cast it when you're down.
Yeah, but you will be in Shroud and hopefully a little bit tankier and able to sustain the blow or whatever. Yeah. So to compensate from that, the fear duration has been increased, and you can get them away further if you're actually casting it. But yeah, I like this because fighting against Core Necros, like there's a nice skull animation and everything, but you never really.
There's no reason for the animation because it just happens instantly.
Exactly, and now there is, and I like that for sure.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a visual effect for Death's Carapace boots. I hope it doesn't look too crazy.
Like above your head? Does it have a number or?
Well, I don't know. It says added a visual effect for the buff, and it updates based on the number of stacks the player has. For people that forgot, Death Magic got a rework that increases your toughness with Death's Carapace as you go.
Yeah.
And so now you get an actual effect on it. It just makes it a bit more visual, I suppose, without having to look at the boon bar.
Interesting.
All right, now here's the thing. Foot in the Grave. Foot in the Grave was an old Soul Reaping Grandmaster that meant when you went into Shroud, you stun broke, first of all, nice and important. Probably the more important part in my personal opinion. And then you get stab afterwards as well, which in a mirror match could get corrupted and could be a bit of a downside sometimes. But that's now gone. That was a big part of stab, really. So all those cooldown bumps you saw earlier, they're compensating for this. Instead, you got the trait Eternal Life. What does it do, Boots?
So gain life force constantly up to a threshold while not enthralled. So this is more life force gaining. We're not getting any nerfs to life force. We're getting buffs to life force.
If we use this trait, there are some pretty other good GMs.
Exactly. So, and that up to a threshold. So in PvE, if you're below 66% life force out of Shroud, it'll slowly tick you up back up to 66%. If you are below 20% in PvP in World vs. World, it'll slowly tick you up to 20%.
Yeah, I kind of love this, dude. Oh, and you get prot when you enter Shroud.
Which is good.
I kind of love this.
Yeah,
I really do.
I mean, there will definitely be, if nothing changes before the patch, there will definitely be some hyper tanky Necromancer builds out there.
I wonder how fast it gives you the life force. It says it's constant.
I don't know, probably.
But how fast?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe it's different for PvE in World vs. World.
Yeah. Well, they don't really give us the details, sadly. Oh, mate, they might in the next post. We don't know. And then the last change is Flesh of the Master. They fixed a bug where Death's Carapace stacks could be applied incorrectly. Sure. So some new toys, some new reworks. Nothing too big, to be honest. We'll see how the minion stuff goes. So looking over at the competitive bit, which is, of course, the bigger one.
Once again, we have your general nerfs. There's actually one particular point in here that I would love to laugh about with you, if possible. Well, first of all, Life Blast on normal Death Shroud got nerfed from 1.4 to 1.15. I do not understand this change at all, because
the Life Blast
getting nerfed, it is not very useful. So sure, nerf.
I don't know whether I agree with you there. Life Blast is pretty good. Power Core Necro, it's not bad,
I've used
man.
Power Core Necro, and yeah, it does. I mean, it's fun that it tracks people a lot. Like, it's really hard to avoid, but
yeah, the might stacks you get from it when you're
if you're like pure berserker, it does like 5,000 damage. No, I guess not. You could get up to like 8,000 damage crits.
It's just constant. It's just really nice.
But it's not that fast. You're going, but it's more like boom, boom.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if someone gives you quickness or you find a source of it somehow, I don't know. I have a lot of memories of ripping people to pieces with Life Blast and Transfer. So this kind of makes sense to me. I'll agree to disagree about it, because maybe the times have moved on, right? And you're probably right. Yeah. But maybe they're just scared, right? Everything's getting nerfed to look a bit more vanilla, and they're remembering that being oppressive during vanilla, maybe?
Maybe. But then we get to the Reaper Shroud. The auto attack chain gets nerfed quite a bit, actually. Almost half of it. It's down to 60% of its original, it looks like, approximately. Death Charge goes down by half. The Infusing Terror, the stability duration is down by half. But it's still, that means you still get to pulse. Like, you just won't get 2 stacks of it. It'll be pulsing stability. You'll still have stability uptime of 100%, it seems, with Infusing Terror. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like Reaper is still going to do quite well. I love the Executioner's Scythe change, though, right?
Okay, so this is the one I want to laugh about with you, though.
All right. You say your piece, then.
Executioner's Scythe, obviously because it's a big stun, gets nerfed down to 0.01, so it doesn't do any damage. But it still scales the damage based off of how low the player was.
Right, yeah, they could be much cleaner about it and just say
just put it to 0.01, because it doesn't matter if it's 0.02.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's ridiculous. There are little things like that where you can clearly see they've just done this because it's a part of the set of changes, but it doesn't make sense to have that. Also, you know, it's why is it called Executioner's Scythe if we're now making the decision at this patch that it's a stun skill? It's not the
and
execution.
It's not going to execute anybody. Yeah,
They've made the decision here that the damage in Shroud is the 4, really, right? And landing autos to a certain extent, but they're saying that, so what you're going to do is you're going to 5 and then you're going to 4, and that's like set up into burst. A lot of weapons kind of have that set up thing now, right? There's like the CC on there, and then there's whatever you decide the burst should be, and that's what you can really watch for and dodge. So yeah, I mean, it does no damage now, but its stun duration has gone all the way up to 2.5 seconds.
Yeah,
which is like a good chunky stun right there.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, that's Reaper. You've got the Scourge stuff. To be honest, I don't really see anything that amazing here. It doesn't look like it's been tweaked too much.
Not too crazy.
Which is interesting to me because, I mean, I suppose half Torment on Manifest Sandshade, and obviously that's what Pulse is when you do the other ones.
Yeah, and also Nefarious Favor, it converts 2 boons, 2 conditions into boons now, instead of 1.
Yeah, I think what's happened with Scourge is they've gone through so many changes, especially on the competitive side, that now I see something like this, and I think, oh, it's not actually as, radical of a revamp. Like, it's taken a lot of the devs' focus, it feels like, since POF came out. You can look down all of the weapon skills. I encourage you guys to pause the video if you'd really like to. Nothing really leaps out on here to me. It's pretty much all in line with what we've talked about so far in terms of just reducing the damage and...
Yeah. Please tell us if there's something that we're missing, though.
All right, so heals, they basically nerfed them again like we saw with the Ellie stuff, but Sand Flare in particular, they hit the barrier as well as the base heal, which... And the cooldown's gone up. It's like a triple whammy. I really like the gameplay with Sand Flare.
I mean, you might still like it.
I mean, you're right. I need to think in terms of that, don't I?
Yeah.
So then you got utilities. Might be some interesting stuff here.
Yeah, Corrupt Boon is down a little bit, and the recharge is up, so it's a big nerf on the Corrupt Boon. What else do we got? Well of Corruption, not much of a change. The wells don't change too much. Obviously the vulnerability, the duration goes down and nothing can save you.
Dude, I like this. Yeah, Well of Suffering, right? It's just a damage well. That's all it really does and stacks Vuln. And they nearly left it alone.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
10% reduction, not so bad.
This is like a buff to Well of Suffering, guys. That's how you want to look at that. That really is.
Because it didn't go down as much as everything else. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that skill as well. So now it feels a little bit more justified. Oh, Trail of Anguish. That one's big. So this is a stability skill for Scourge.
Oh, yeah.
Stun break plus stability. Cooldown's gone way up, 50 seconds. You can obviously trade it down a little bit, but yeah. That's your other big stability drop right there.
Well, let me hold on a second. Anything about Blood is Power? No, I don't see anything.
Nope. You would have thought they might do something more with Desiccate, but they just increased the number of might stacks from 5 to 8. Over on the elites, you can charge with the Flesh Golem a little bit more regularly. I wonder if it will
way less
have
damage.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's like a setup, right?
Yeah.
Chilled to the Bone, you get way less stab from it. It does no damage anymore, but they've increased the stun duration to 3 seconds. Also, the cooldown's down, and you can do the... Dude, Chilled to the Bone, Reaper,
cooldown's down. Yeah, the cooldown's down because Chilled to the Bone used to do a decent amount of damage. And now that it does no damage, they reduce the cooldown.
Oh, man, the CC... I honestly think that Necros and Reapers in particular, they can CC bomb the hell out of stuff. With less stab in the game...
Yeah,
and they can spam that Chill to the Bone a lot more. Ooh. And then they reduced the slow duration on Ghastly Breach in accordance with the Condi stuff, I guess.
Yeah. But now we got the traits.
Death's Embrace is pretty big, I think, personally. 25% extra damage in downstate is going to just 5 now. Necro downstate, I actually think is very weak, but it can be oppressive because it can hit hard, right?
Right, but now it's just 5%. This trait just feels like it shouldn't exist now.
Well, it does do some other stuff, right?
I guess.
I think. But yeah, so that's a big drop down. I think that with the new balance we're coming into, Necros would have been quite intimidating while they're in downstate. I kind of like the idea that they were the powerhouses of the downstate.
Yeah.
What else do you see?
Anything? More versus the world, though. Siphon power, blah blah blah. Not so impressive. It's all basically the same stuff. Let's try to see if there's anything very different.
Bit of a transfusion nerf for the revive pulses, again, as you'd expect.
Chill of Death, actually. That's kind of big.
Where's the Chill of Death change? Oh, reduce power coefficient. So Chill of Death would, for free, rip boon. It would basically cast Focus 5, right?
Yeah. And now it's gone. It's like, does no damage.
But you still get the boon rip. I mean, that's exactly one of those instant activation passive things that they were talking about, right? So you can imagine. I'm actually curious. Spiteful Spirit, then, when you enter Shroud, you got so much value. So you get less additional boons when they're below half health. Basically, they've halved the boon rip on it, and it does less damage. Yeah. So anything along those lines is being culled down. Over a little bit lower down, you've got some of the Scourge stuff. I don't think you're going to find any hidden treats or nerfs in there anyway. It's just expertise getting dropped, burning duration getting dropped. Lots of stuff being pulled down. I feel like FB Scourge combo is already really on the back foot. But look, it's a whole shake-up. You never know what will come out high.
Yep.
Doomfire's burning is down from 3 seconds to 1.
Did you already talk about Fear of Death going down from 100% to 50%?
No. So you could still do big, long fear. I actually love that, Boots.
Yeah, it's good. Because before, you could just take this, if you're doing a fear build, which, well, I mean, if you're doing a fear build, you're doing a Condi build, basically. But now, and you could just take this one trait, and you wouldn't need to take any Condi duration, but you would anyway, because you have other Condis. But now you could still get, probably up close to 100%, maybe 80% fear duration from this.
Importantly, the highest of all the classes, right? Because of this. But what I really like is pre-patch, when that was just at 100 with the one trait. I've always liked the idea of doing a terror build, a fear-oriented necro. But the actual build craft was kind of boring because this one trait would cap that Condi out. So why run Necromancer runes? Necromancers had 20% fear duration. That will be going down, obviously. But why take that? Because you have Fear of Death. So now you can take them both.
Exactly.
So I like that. I do.
Exactly. And also it's kind of interesting because it seems like with so many CCs being only for CC now, you might consider Fear to be more important as a CC than it is a damage dealer.
Right.
So it could be good playstyle nowadays just for CC.
I want to note as well, guys, you will notice that a lot of Necro Corrupts are nerfed. But globally, boon removal is not necessarily, because you got to remember, Corrupts is just more Condi. It just trades one type of bloat for another type of bloat. So they're nerfing that, but I think a lot of the removal, so that's why you see a little bit more of it here. Like, for example, I was looking at Scepter 3's been reduced some as well, the conditions, the boons that will rip. It's gone to the World vs. World format. So yeah, cool.
That's Necromancer.
That's Necro. The last one we have to mention for this video is going to be
the Mesmer. Oh my god, the Mesmer.
Mesmer changes. You know what? I can't remember what I read about Mesmer last night.
There is one specific thing that happens with Mesmer in PvP and War vs. World.
Oh, yeah, there's a Mirage change. Yeah. All right, okay, Boots, what do they say for global? So back to the whole game here, Mesmer section.
Mesmer, in this update, we are making some changes to the Greatsword and Domination trait line in order to provide a more reliable baseline ranged damage build for Mesmer. We are removing the Confounding Suggestions trait, which has been problematic to balance in the past due to its power level, and we're adding in a new trait, Vicious Expression, which plays better with the Domination line's boon removal. Finally, we are changing the Mirage's Elusive Mind to no longer break stuns, as we feel that the necessity of including exhaustion as a balancing factor has made it too binary as a choice.
Which it totally has. As soon as they did that, you just don't really run it anymore. We can talk more about that when we get there in the list, right?
Sure, yeah.
So, Signet of Domination.
No longer instacast.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't
Well, no, it wasn't instacast before, but it's slower.
It was quick.
Only slightly slower, though.
So now you can dodge it a bit better, maybe.
Yeah.
Spatial Surge, that's the auto. It's just a tooltip thing. Now displays maximum damage, then minimum. So Mirror Blade, this was the first interesting one to me. Fix a bug that caused it to play its slashing effect on the player instead of the target. Alright, fine. The cooldown's been reduced, but instead of doing 1.0 and then 0.6 damage per hit, it now reduces the damage on future bounces by 15 each time. Huh. So Mirror Blade's like really big if you're going to burst someone as a Mesmer, right? Like you precast it, you port in next to them, and it bounces from them to you, to them to you, to them to you, and each time it hits them, it does lots of damage.
Yeah.
So for Mind Stab, it no longer removes boons, you can cast a bit quicker, but here they say it inflicts cripple.
Okay.
So what's interesting about the cripple is currently in the game, there's a trait called Imagined Burden, and what that does is it makes all your GS stuff cripple, and you can just keep cripple on people, which is obviously really good for the kind of weapon it is. You know, you want to be far away from them and constantly range them down. That trait's been retired and is changing, so now the cripple is baseline on the set, right? Okay. But it's tied to a specific animation instead of just constantly pulsing out because of a trait, which is good. So, and they haven't actually figured out the exact number they want in PvP and World vs. World, which is interesting. They just say likely to be reduced in those formats. The Berserker no longer cripples. The projectile that you throw out when you cast the phantasm rips boons, but it also no longer boomerangs. Right now, you cast it, the guy appears, your blade fires out and then comes back, but it won't come back anymore.
Okay.
So, confounding suggestions. This is a pain in the ass trait. I'm happy to see the back of it.
It's gone.
Diversion now stuns instead of dazing. That is what it is at the moment, and I think it works through evades. It's horrendous. I hate this trait. It is really, really stupid as a trait, and it's one of the main setups for the big bursts that a lot of Mesmers do. So, you've got the mirror blade change, but with no confounding suggestions, you won't necessarily get all the bounces on them, right?
Right.
And it's now been replaced. I think there was a lot of discussion about this. I think I saw online. The new one's called Bountiful Blades, and it means that the mirror blade will bounce another additional 2 times.
So that means one more hit though.
Yeah, off of them and then off of you. Yeah. But you get the extra might or whatever. The Berserker summons an additional Berserker, and they do less damage. 33% less damage instead of 25% less damage now. So it's kind of nerfed, but they've refactored that a little bit.
Okay.
And what this does, by the way, is this kind of gives you a split on what Grandmaster you go for in the domination line. If you want all the bounces, then you're going to have to give up the other GM you might have otherwise been using.
But then because of the way that Mirror Blade works, the new way it works, minus 15% each time, it sounds like this additional bounce is going to do less damage than all the others.
I guess, yes. You got to think about that too. Imagined Burden, like I say, is gone. That one was replaced with you and your illusions do increased damage to any foe without boons, and disabling a foe removes 2 boons in PvE and 1 boon in PvP and World vs. World. So you can see that
pretty strong, yeah.
Yeah, and you'll see that where Mesmer's identity is boon removal and they want less boons around, they're not scared to add the boon removal here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then finally the Mirage trait, Elusive Mind. But this is obviously global changes, but they're thinking competitively. Elusive Mind. So this is dodge roll to stun break when you're Mirage and cleanse, but you don't really need to stun break because you can evade while stunned. So it was never that great stun breaking. It was never that necessary. And they put a drawback on it, which means that you get exhaustion from doing it, which is awful. So what they've done now is just got rid of the stun break part of it, got rid of the exhaustion part of it, and increased the Condi cleanse up to 3 in PvE, 2 in PvP and World vs. World, which I think is more balanced. Whether it really competes with Infinite Horizon is a whole other story, and I'm not sure I'm convinced, but you never know.
Yeah,
it might be good.
Yeah.
So that's really what I think about the global changes. Do you want to look at the?
I really do, and I want to talk about one of them.
Okay, all right. So PvP. Now, as we go into this, guys, remember that they're trying to add drawbacks for each elite specialization.
Right.
And you have not seen, for global changes, a drawback on Mirage. It still doesn't have one.
But now it does.
They are doing a drawback only in the competitive modes for Mirage.
Oh, that's true, eh? They didn't... Yeah, it's not for PvE.
Now, how weird is that?
That's
weird. So what do we have? Profession mechanics, first of all, shatters, damage down. Split second has a really weird icon. Wow. Damage down.
Shatter is also down, yeah. All the damage down on everything, as usual.
They maintain the 1 Warlock summon on the Phantasmal Warlock, which I'm very happy about. World vs. World now gets the PvP single clone from Illusory Counter, which I'm very happy about. The Phantasmal Swordsman does do less damage on the initial and the follow-up ones.
Yeah, a lot less damage, actually.
Illusory Riposte was at a 2.0 coefficient before. It's down to just 1. They've halved it.
Yeah.
The Warden wasn't hit too hard, comparatively.
No, the Phantasmal Duelist wasn't hit too hard either.
Which is interesting. I mean, that's more about the bleed than anything else. They've reduced the stun duration on Magic Bullet, but didn't reduce the bounces. I think bounce effects... I would have liked this patch to look more at bounce effects and mobility, but it didn't really do
But then it wouldn't be a Magic Bullet.
Yeah, and it didn't look at stealth much either, which has also been power crept over time. So the prestige is just the power. Oh, who cares really? But there it is. So yeah, there's really not much to say in terms of the weapons there. Moving over to utilities.
Well, the heals first, I guess.
Yeah, you got all the heals. It looks like universally the heals are they're taking longer to cast. They're longer
to
cooldowns.
cast, and nerfs on the Signet of Aether, Well of Eternity, False Oasis. Quite a large nerf, I guess, on False Oasis, actually.
All the heal skill nerfs makes me really excited about people comboing water fields and stuff together again.
To finally actually use combos, yeah.
Yeah, to get back a little bit to more of that. There is a little bit of that. One of my favorite things about playing Hollow lately is meeting up with someone and heal turreting on them and blasting it multiple times. And if they blast too, it just feels so good. If there was more of that across the whole game, it would be very, very cool.
I mean, that's another reason I'm not too worried about some of the Condi nerfs, because there's only a few Condi builds I like playing, and one of them is the Toxic Thief that I made a long time ago, and they're not changing, the duration of the combo poison field stuff, so, not a big deal.
Hopefully there'll be a big thing on that. So staying at Mesmer, we've got Blink is up by 5 seconds. Lightning Flash went down, Blink went up, so they're now uniform. There's still the question of why one has a better trait synergy and one goes further and one stun breaks. But hey.
Well, I mean, now that the damage on the Ellie one is so low, it's almost as though it's a Blink without any stun break.
Without the extra stuff on top, yeah. But they're the same cooldown, and I'm happy just from that. Reduce the slow and the quickness on Arcane Thievery. Mantra of Distraction is... reduce the recharge from 15 to 10. They actually buffed the Mantra of Distraction.
But reduce the day's duration?
I guess, but it's really the intro up to that you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Power Spike, super spammy, boring, instant activation skill, nerfed in some pretty decent ways.
Less damage, yeah.
But the vulnerability side of it has gone up, so it's more of a setup than an actual consistent pressure thing.
Right.
Mantras in general, cooldown for Mantra Result, the cleanse one's gone way up, as you'll see. A lot of cooldown increases. For elites, Mass Invis goes back to 75 seconds. Very appropriate, I think, considering the duration now. Mm-hmm. Basically, Sneak Gyro came in, then they buffed Massive Visibility, and then Massive Visibility was too much, so now that's gone up. And then the Gravity Well, look at this.
Damage, wow.
Yeah,
the duration is down to 60 seconds, though. That'll be nice.
Yeah, so it's just like Tornado, really. You can do it a lot more regularly. Way less stab, and CC skills won't hurt you anymore, but they appear a lot more. So yeah, the amount of setup potential.
Gravity Well is kind of a strong CC, a very strong CC. The damage on it was high, but the CC part of it was pretty rough. So the reducing the cooldown on this is, I still see this being played quite often.
Well, Chrono is super dead since they reworked a lot of that stuff, and to be honest, I've been happy that I don't get caught in Gravity Wells 30 times a match, but you never know.
You never know.
What we'll be in after this. This is going to be an exciting time to play for a little bit. So then you got the traits. Power Block, the weakness went down, but not anything else, just like the Ellie treatment. Random Vuln and Condis has gone down. In Dueling, the Reflect Mirror from Evasive Mirror has gone down. Very good. Desperate Decoy, the free stealth for you, all the way up to 120 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is very good. Sharper Images, this one's really big. We already talked about a ton of boon duration and a ton of Condi duration going, right? Which really affects Chaos Condi Mirage. Sharper Images is a huge part of that Wanderer setup. And it's got, this is your illusions will crit as they do things. Down from 5 seconds to just 2. That's a big nerf to the Condi variant. Big nerf to Condi Mesmer. Mirage in particular with Infinite Horizon. Chaos, just lots longer cooldowns. Method of Madness all the way up to 75 seconds.
Increase the toughness condition conversion to 13%. Okay.
Yeah, but reduce the concentration on chaotic transference.
So again, they don't care about... Again, this is this one again is counter. They're saying that they want Condis not to be burst.
I guess to an extent.
This is one trait. It's literally the opposite of that sentence.
It's the kind of a weak trait. So maybe they just felt like this wanted a bump. Maybe.
Yeah, fair enough.
Less protection on dampening, less might on bountiful disillusionment. But I mean, honestly, that's still pretty strong. Less healing in inspiration. Not too many people were running it. Mental defense is longer cooldown. All right, so let's come all the way down now to the elite specializations. All right, and I know that it's the last one on the list that you really want, right?
It's important to talk about.
So Mirage, the Mirage Cloak. This trait now reduces the Mirage's endurance by 50 in competitive modes.
And this means that if you are a Mirage in PvP and War vs. World, you no longer have 2 dodges.
You only have one.
Dodge.
Your bar, guys, is going to look like when you're a Springer, right?
Yeah.
There's not going to be that little notch in the middle. It will just be the one thing. You have 50 max endurance. So what do you think, Boots, about that?
I think that... Okay. I see why. Because Mirages are freaking strong. And I like the idea of trade-offs. I feel like this is one of those types of changes, though, that might be good for the game, but at the same time, it makes playing an entire subclass, an entire elite specialization, it seems like it's going to be a lot less fun to play.
Okay.
So, and I mean, I might be wrong, but I always feel like the point of playing a game is to have fun. But, so like, if it makes something so much less fun to play, it would be a less good change than something that didn't make something less fun to play.
All right, I think that's perfectly fair. I think people have got misgivings about it. I've also seen advocates for this change. I myself may have been one in the past. I'm actually excited about it. And I don't think it will change much, especially in World versus World, where like a sigil of energy is 50 endurance all on its own. Fine. Because what I feel like is going to happen with Mirage is...
There's no more double dodges, though, that's for sure.
Well, no, there still are. You can just dodge, weapon swap, dodge. And here's the other...
But that still takes time.
Here's the other thing that I really want to explain. First of all, there's a lot of vigor rolling around. Even after this, I think there will still be. There's stuff like Adventurer runes. There's stuff like Sigils of Energy. There's a lot of ways to spike that back up and regularly keep spiking it back up. So really, this is a question of you lose like overcap endurance. And
yes, which is why I was going to make a suggestion, though, that instead of saying you no longer have 50%, you only had down to 50 instead of 100, I think maybe what would be better is if it was 70 instead of 100.
Right, so you get that little bit of cushion, yeah?
Exactly. You'd be able to stack up a little bit more if you want. You don't lose, like if you have Vigor, it's useless for you except for the small amounts of time in between dodging.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. The play style with a lot of Mirage stuff as well is you're not really reactively dodging. You're preemptively dodging to load out Infinite Horizon pressure. And you're using stuff like Act 3 or movement to actually avoid specific telegraphs that you see. So, and for all that kind of play style, I don't actually think that the half endurance makes as much difference as it might look.
It does, though.
No.
It does.
And look, the main point I've been trying to say this whole time is a fundamental part of Mirage is, yes, the actual dodge roll itself changing, but it's mirrors, all right? It's placing mirrors down and collecting mirrors as your dodge rolls. And all those interactions are there, and in fact, if anything, enforced. So I actually kind of like that more. The idea that you pop that heal skill, it gives you a bit of vigor, by the way, but then also later it will form into a mirror, and you want to pay attention to where that was, so that you can get your, that's kind of like your extra 100. I think that it's actually really healthy. I think Mirage will be very playable, and you just have to lean into those interactions a bit more, which very few of us do right now.
That's true. That's true.
Because it's more about, like, long term, if you're fighting a Mirage, it's not really about his cap of endurance. It's about how quickly he gets it back. And he still has a lot of tools for that, and a lot of tools to evade and de-target and stuff. Yeah. So, but we'll see. We'll see. You could be totally right, and it feels horrible to play now.
I think that a nice in between would be if it was 70 or 75 instead of 50. Yeah,
I agree with that as well. I think, I'd probably go a little. The idea is to nerf it, right? So I would maybe 50 to 55 to 75 or something probably would be my range.
Yeah.
But yeah, in any case, there you have it, guys. And June Cloak, by the way, does a little bit less damage, and that's it. Okay. So they have it. That's the light armors. We got through them.
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah, really, really fast, right? We were planning on doing these in about 20 minutes, guys. So
how long did it take?
I don't know. I don't want to look. We've been going 2 hours, apparently, between this and the introduction. Tomorrow, guys, you will see 2 new videos, and they will be on the heavy stuff and the medium stuff, respectively. Would love to see you over there, and have a good evening.
Bye.
Ta-ta. All right, cool.